Do you know how many children James Brown, the Godfather of Soul, had? Not just one or two, but a complex lineage with at least 13 children, fates forced to struggle under his colossal shadow. Millions revered his music, but few knew that behind the dazzling spotlight lay a legacy steeped in blood and tears, etched deeply into each of his children. Forget the dazzling performances. Today, we're going to peel back the darkest pages of this legendary family's history, from a child's mysterious death at 19 to infants caught in a decade-long battle over inheritance. You'll shudder to learn how other children faced extreme poverty, debilitating illness, and the ultimate pain of being disowned by their own legendary father. This isn't just a story about monetary disputes. These are heart-wrenching personal tragedies. Lives submerged in the shadow of a father who was magnificent yet utterly complex. Prepare yourselves, because what you are about to witness in this video will haunt you forever. Everyone knows that James Brown, born in 1933, was an undeniable icon of funk and R&B music. Dubbed the Godfather of Soul, he pioneered funk, shaped R&B, and even influenced hip-hop, from timeless hits like Papa's Got a Brand New Bag to I Got You, I Feel Good. His career spanned 6 decades, leaving its mark on the world's biggest music stages with 14 Grammy nominations. His musical legacy is eternal, but tragically, the stage's brilliance could not conceal the darkness that enveloped his chaotic personal life, especially the tragedies he inflicted upon his own loved ones. And you know what? It's the Godfather's personal life that is truly haunting. James Brown married 4 times, and initially, we only knew he had at least 13 children. But then, after his passing in 2006, a shocking new chapter began to unfold. It's hard to believe. But dozens of others emerged, claiming to be his biological children, sparking an inheritance dispute that dragged on for over 15 years, filled with endless lawsuits. His life wasn't just about groundbreaking hits. It was also riddled with heartbreaking domestic violence, repeated substance abuse that led to him being arrested no less than 8 times. There were even periods when he'd drive frantically cross-country, gripped by terrifying paranoia. Do you feel a raw truth slowly being revealed? These painful hidden corners not only tarnished the image of a musical genius, but also created an unstable environment, an immense psychological burden for his very own flesh and blood. So, what kind of tragedies did all of that lead to in the lives of James Brown's children? Join us as we step into the harsh world of 13 descendants, individuals who were ultimately confirmed as the bloodkin of the Soul King. Every frame of their stories will etch itself into your mind, leaving you utterly heartbroken. 1. Teddy Brown, musical heir, and the legendary family's first victim. Among those tragic fates, the story of Teddy Brown, the firstborn child of the Godfather of Soul, is perhaps the most heartbreaking tragedy. A mysterious death at 19 that opened the first door to a haunting chain of events within this legendary family. What truly happened to the young man named Brown, who carried the dream of following in his father's footsteps but met such a cruel and unjust end? Born in 1954, Teddy Brown should have been the first light in the life of the Godfather of Soul, the hope of James Brown and Velma Warren. But from the moment he was a tiny infant, Teddy's life was dictated by chaos and shadows. Can you imagine Teddy's infant cries drowned out by his parents' earth-shattering arguments? The boy grew up with the sound of James Brown's leather shoes hurrying out the door after long nights of fighting, leaving Velma with swollen eyes and a cold, empty room. In the hidden corners of that house, Teddy, with fear-filled child's eyes, more than once cowered, witnessing the cruel beatings James inflicted upon his mother, her painful screams mixing with the clatter of breaking objects. His father's vibrant, passionate soul music blared from the radio, from the stage, contrasting starkly and chillingly with the shouts and crashing sounds echoing within his own home. Teddy grew up utterly starved for affection, with a constant fear that choked every breath, and a fragile heart always yearning for a little peace, a little warmth from his great but distant father. He quickly showed innate musical talent, a voice like poured honey, and skillful fingers on the instruments. Teddy clung to music, following his father's path as a singer and producer, like a lifeline. He once harbored the hope that music itself would be the bridge, the only way to reach the heart of his elusive father, to find the recognition and love he so desperately craved. But that dream, as fragile as smoke, shattered in a cruel tragedy, a horrifying moment no one anticipated, like a song abruptly cut short. Then, on the fateful night of August 28, 1973, a shrill phone ring tore through the silent night, cold as a knife. On the other end was an emotionless voice. Delivering the news, Teddy had died at 19 in a mysterious car accident, just before he was set to release his debut album. The album he believed would make his father proud. His death, sudden and cruel, left behind a desolate void, riddled with suspicions and chilling rumors. People whispered about a brawl related to debts. Others murmured about a meticulously staged murder to hide the dark, decaying secrets of the James Brown family. Teddy's death plunged James into deeper depression, driving him further into addiction. But it was merely the selfish grief of a father already too familiar with darkness. For Teddy, it was the tragic end of a brief, unfortunate life that never found even a single moment of true peace. The shadow of the Godfather of Soul swallowed his son's life, leaving behind only unanswered questions and endless sorrow. Terry Brown, The Fugitive's Tragedy, From the Warehouse to a Maimed Limb's Scar. Can you ever imagine a descendant of the renowned Godfather of Soul living a precarious life, toiling as a strenuous laborer in a shabby warehouse? Terry Brown, born on March 12, 1957, was the second child of music legend James Brown and his first wife, Velma Warren. His birth occurred amidst his parents' steadily crumbling marriage, riddled with endless conflicts and violence. Like his elder brother Teddy, Terry grew up in a household brimming with unease, witnessing earth-shattering arguments and his father's continuous absences. His childhood was a long series of days watching his mother struggle with pain and loneliness, utterly lacking the warmth and protection of a parent. Because the celebrated artist showed him no interest or support, and he inherited no privileges from the dazzling aura of the King of Soul. Terry had to fend for himself from a very young age. His dream of higher education quickly faded. From his high school years in the early 1970s, Terry had to drop out to earn a living. His career path was tied to strenuous manual labor. The peak was his work as a loader, toiling day and night in a small, cramped warehouse to scrape together enough money for his miserable existence. A life in stark, cruel contrast to the luxury his father enjoyed. Despite striving for a life of utter normalcy, fate would not leave Terry untouched. On a fateful morning, May 18, 1990, at a dilapidated warehouse deep in a slum in South Atlanta, Georgia, where Terry was sweating through his demanding physical work, a horrific accident struck. A massive 100-pound crate unexpectedly slipped from its shelf and crashed down, crushing his entire right leg. Terry's heart-wrenching scream tore through the silent space of the warehouse. But no one seemed to hear his agony in that cold, indifferent place. He had to undergo multiple painful surgeries, but with the meager wages of a laborer. He couldn't afford the best treatments. He endured permanent disability, his leg never fully healed, and spent the rest of his life in dire, extreme poverty, without a cent to fully recover. Even more shocking, throughout the years Terry struggled with physical pain and relentless poverty. James Brown, his famous father and owner of a vast fortune, completely ignored his son's existence. Not a single phone call, no inquiry, no financial assistance was ever sent from the man the whole world celebrated. Terry was named in his deceased father's original will, but that only marked the beginning of a new tragedy. After the King of Soul's passing in late 2006, he was dragged into a protracted and exhausting legal dispute. Despite all his efforts to escape the spotlight and his family's turmoil, it wasn't until 2021, when the asset lawsuit finally settled, that Terry received a tiny portion of the inheritance, less than $1 million, a gift too late and utterly insufficient to compensate for decades of suffering, illness, and the disability that had ravaged his life. Currently, Terry Brown continues to live a quiet life in rural Georgia, battling chronic pain and lasting effects from the accident. Despite receiving a small sum, his life remains trapped in the shadow of misfortune and loneliness. Terry's life is a vivid and heartbreaking testament that even when trying to hide from the fame and chaos of a great progenitor, tragedy stemming from the very name of James Brown can still find and destroy a child's life, pushing them into utter despair and solitude, leaving unhealed scars both physical and emotional. 3. Larry Brown, the Phantom of Fame. Do you think Terry Brown's tragedy was the ultimate suffering that James Brown's descendants had to endure sadly, before his cries of anguish could even fade? Fate dealt another cruel blow to this tumultuous family. Larry Brown, Terry's brother, also could not escape the vicious cycle of tragedy. Indeed, this child's story serves as further proof of helplessness when body and destiny are tormented by illness and chilling indifference. Larry Brown, born in 1959, was the third child of James Brown and Velma Warren. He was born at a time when his father's fame was soaring to its peak, but it was also when their home plunged deep into chaos and violence. Larry grew up in a household that was never truly a peaceful sanctuary, where the passionate applause of millions of fans outside starkly contrasted with the ear-splitting arguments and the crashing sounds of objects echoing in every corner. He witnessed the family's gradual disintegration, keenly feeling the absence and coldness of his talented but emotionally distant father. From a young age, Larry ardently craved a normal life, a life untouched by the wild extravagance and incessant scandals of his progenitor. He rarely appeared in public, always choosing a quiet existence, trying to build his own world as if to escape the colossal shadow of the Godfather of Soul that seemed to devour everything. Despite his efforts to earn a living, from being a small-time salesman to a late-night delivery driver, Larry's life remained consistently precarious and impoverished. He never had the chance for higher education. Indeed, from 1975, at just 16 years old, he had to start working full-time to help support his family. For every hour of arduous labor, Larry earned a meager $3, a pitiable sum compared to the millions his father amassed each concert night. He once hoped that if he lived discreetly enough, normally enough, tragedy from the name James Brown would not find him. Yet, fate seemed to have cruelly determined that Larry would not escape the harsh destiny of the Brown family. On a fateful morning, January 7, 2002, in his shabby rented apartment in a poor neighborhood of Charleston, South Carolina, as Larry tried to get up from his stiff bed to prepare for a demanding work shift, a terrifying stroke struck without warning, like a lightning bolt directly hitting his body. He felt a chilling surge course down his spine. Then his body collapsed onto the cold floor, one side paralyzed. A choked groan caught in his throat. He tried to reach out but only found futility. No one was there to help him. It took nearly 6 hours before a neighbor discovered him when they saw the door ajar and called for emergency services. Larry was rushed to a public hospital in critical condition. The diagnosis, a severe stroke, causing paralysis on his right side and severely impacting his ability to speak. Given his dire financial situation, Larry couldn't afford the exorbitant hospital bills, estimated at over $250,000 in the first few months, nor the best rehabilitation therapies. He faced the ultimate fear of illness, of mounting debts, with no significant help from his famous father, who at that time was living in luxury and opulence. Do you believe it? Throughout the days, Larry fought for his life with death. And then, during the long years battling the effects of partial paralysis, James Brown, the famous father and owner of a multi-million-dollar fortune, was completely unaware, or rather, completely indifferent to his son's tragic plight. Not a single inquiry. No financial assistance was ever sent from the man the whole world celebrated. Larry once appeared in an A&E documentary about his father, but it wasn't to share fond memories, but rather to recount the lingering pain, the unfillable voids in the heart of an abandoned child. Larry's life is a silent struggle against illness and extreme poverty. Although named in James Brown's will, he received only a very small portion in the prolonged dispute, an insignificant sum of less than $500,000 after nearly 2 decades of legal battles, utterly insufficient to change his miserable life or cover his crushing medical expenses. Larry Brown is a heartbreaking testament to the fact that James Brown's dazzling fame brought no wealth or peace to all of his children. Sometimes, it was a cruel curse, pushing them to the depths of tragedy. 4. Larhonda Pettit, a life of bitter struggle to be acknowledged. When the King of Soul, James Brown, swept across stages, electrifying the world, a tiny soul was born from his fleeting affair with Barbara Pettit. That was Larhonda Pettit. Born on April 20, 1962 in Atlanta, Larhonda grew up facing a harsh reality. Her father's voice filled the airwaves, but her home was empty of his presence. Not a single inquiry, no financial support ever came from the man the whole world celebrated. Without privilege or backing, the young woman was forced to fend for herself. Starting in 1980, she embarked on a career as a flight attendant, tirelessly flying across time zones as she served millions of passengers. James Brown traveled in his private jet. Larhonda yearned for stability. She worked tirelessly, eventually becoming a teacher in the early 90s, finding a little peace in imparting knowledge. But deep down, the yearning for recognition gnawed at her soul. In September 1995, Larhonda Pettit stepped into the Los Angeles Superior Court. The DNA test request trembled in her hand as she faced the scrutinizing gazes and skepticism from the Brown family members sitting in the audience, and the relentless media scrutiny. On December 12, 1995, the fateful moment arrived. The DNA test result displayed the words, "Probability of paternity 99.9%. Tears streamed from her eyes, not tears of overflowing joy, but the release of decades of suppression, mixed with immeasurable sorrow. The truth was revealed. However, James Brown remained absolutely silent. Not a single public acknowledgement was ever issued by him. Even after science had proven everything, he permanently disowned her. Larhonda received no significant inheritance from her father's immense wealth. Currently, she still lives a simple life, continuing her work as a teacher in suburban Atlanta. The scar of rejection and the longing for paternal love remain deeply etched, haunting her to this day. It serves as a testament to a tragedy that money or fame could never heal. 5. Lisa Brown, the scar of disowned identity. To be a child of James Brown, was it a privilege or a cruel curse for Lisa Brown, born in 1963 in Los Angeles? The answer was bitter from the moment of her birth. She faced a harsh truth: the world celebrated her father as a god. Yet for Lisa herself, he was a hopeless void, a forbidden name in her own heart. There was no presence of her progenitor, not a hint of interest or recognition from her renowned father, not even a simple inquiry or a warm embrace. Lisa's childhood, a picture painted by whispered remarks and scrutinizing glances from society, was a long struggle with the endless question of her origins, her place in this world. The gnawing anguish of her identity, of who she was, relentlessly consumed her soul, forming a deep, aching wound. While her father was celebrated by millions at the pinnacle of glory, Lisa lived a quiet, nameless life, painfully disowned. One Christmas night in 1985, when Lisa was just 22, her heart filled with despair and, finally, courage. She sought out and stood silently before James Brown's opulent mansion in Augusta, Georgia. Her sole desire, just once, to face her father, to ask him why he denied her existence. Yet, the heavy iron gate remained coldly shut, like an invisible wall separating two worlds. A manager appeared, handing her a small envelope containing a mere $100, a paltry, insulting sum, along with a bone-chilling message: "Mr. Brown is very busy, don't bother him again." That wasn't merely a refusal of a meeting, it was a fatal stab directly to Lisa's heart, reaffirming her father's unbelievably cruel rejection. That pain of rejection, instead of breaking her, ignited in Lisa a burning determination, an unyielding will. She had to reclaim her identity, no matter the cost. After James Brown's death in late 2006, Lisa no longer hesitated. This wasn't just a legal battle, it was a fight for truth, for herself, and for her mother, who had endured so much humiliation. On the fateful afternoon of November 15, 2007, nearly a year after the Godfather permanently passed away, in a grim DNA testing room in New York, Lisa Brown sobbed uncontrollably. It wasn't the cry of overwhelming joy, but the sound of an immense pain erupting as she held the fateful test result in her hand. After nearly 22 years carrying the agonizing question, after almost 10 years of being rejected and having to spend over $70,000 on lengthy legal procedures, money she painstakingly saved from sales and part-time jobs, science finally proved she was indeed James Brown's biological daughter. It was a legal victory, a confirmation of identity that couldn't be disputed. Yet it left an unfillable scar deep in her soul. Lisa was recognized as the child of a legend. But that recognition came too late, as her father had permanently passed on, never able to give her a hug, an apology, or simply acknowledge her existence during his lifetime. Lisa Brown still carries the emotional wound of a fatherless childhood, and the humiliating struggle for recognition will forever be a haunting part of her life. 6. Michael Deanna Brown, the teenager's cry silenced by his own father. Among the children who yearned for recognition from James Brown, there's a particularly tragic case: Michael Deanna Brown. Born in 1968, the result of a fleeting relationship between the King of Soul and a lesser-known woman, Michael grew up completely without the presence of his renowned progenitor. He only knew his father through his iconic songs and distant media stories, a magnificent but utterly unfamiliar figure in his own life. Michael's existence was shrouded in scarcity, receiving no privileges or attention whatsoever from the millionaire. As James Brown's voice shook massive stages, Michael quietly confronted his burning longing to call him Dad. The pain of abandonment steadily grew, until one day in March 1983, Michael, then just a frail but resentful 15-year-old, personally filed a lawsuit against James Brown in a South Carolina court, demanding a paternity test. It was a bold act, a desperate cry, echoing amidst his father's silence. But James Brown, with his immense power and influence, flatly refused the request, offering no explanation. The trial ended without an ounce of compassion. The cold gaze of opposing lawyers, the judge's indifferent nod, and ultimately, no DNA test was conducted, no official confirmation issued. The pain of being disowned by his own father, publicly before the law and the public, became a tremendous psychological burden, a huge question mark over his identity and recognition, haunting Michael Deanna Brown throughout his life. His life forever bears the scar from that legal battle, a testament to a child's helplessness before the power and indifference of a legend. 7. Daryl Brown, when music became a gate his father shut. If Michael faced public denial, Daryl Brown endured the pain of rejection right at his father's mansion gate. Born in 1969, Daryl was the son of James Brown and B. Ford, a singer in his backing band. He grew up without his father's presence, knowing him only through his vibrant music and distant stories. Daryl was also a talented musician. He once hoped that music would be the bridge to bring him closer to his legendary father, who had abandoned him since birth. One October night in 2005, with James Brown nearing the end of his life, Daryl, his heart filled with a final hope, embraced his old guitar and decided to drive hundreds of miles from Nashville to his father's opulent home in Augusta, Georgia. He longed for just one meeting, to hand his father a self-composed song, a greeting from his own flesh and blood. Yet, the mansion's massive iron gate remained coldly shut. From inside, a manager appeared, looking at him with a scrutinizing gaze, then uttering a chilling remark, "Mr. Brown is very busy, he cannot meet you." The gate slowly closed, crushing Daryl's fragile hope. He was not allowed to see his father, bluntly rejected as a stranger. Just 2 months before his passing, the pain of being disowned once again pierced his heart. Daryl later wrote the memoir, My Father the Godfather, a mournful tune revealing the unbearable conflicts and loneliness of being the child of a legend who was never acknowledged by his father. That final denied meeting became a permanent scar in the artist's soul. 8. Janette Brown, The Will's Curse. To be acknowledged by James Brown before his death, that seemed like a comfort. A peaceful haven for Janette Brown, born in 1970. She was one of the few daughters officially recognized by the King of Soul in his will. But alas, fate continued to mock Janette. That belated recognition, instead of bringing tranquility, plunged her into a new abyss, deeper and more bitter than anything she had ever known. After James Brown's sudden death on December 25, 2006, Janette, who had hoped for a more stable life thanks to the inheritance, was swept into an unprecedentedly fierce asset dispute. She discovered that the convoluted, ambiguous clauses in her father's will had turned her into a pawn on a complex legal chessboard. Every day in court was an arduous battle. Where family ties were torn apart by money, she faced a barrage of lawsuits lasting over 15 years, relentless disputes with her half-siblings, and even strangers exploiting her father's fame for their own gain. James Brown's recognition, which seemed like a blessing, instead pushed Janette into an exhausting, utterly miserable struggle, exposing the dark underbelly of a legacy devoid of love, filled only with suspicion and litigation. Her life is a heartbreaking testament that even recognition cannot guarantee peace and happiness in the Godfather of Soul family. Sometimes, it marks the beginning of a new curse, an unhealable scar. Dr. Yama Brown Lumar, Hidden Screams, A Childhood Under a Genius Father's Shadow. If Janette was caught in an inheritance battle, Yama Brown Lumar carried deeper, unseen scars. Born in 1971 to James Brown and his third wife, Deidre D.D. Jenkins, Yama later became a doctor of pharmacy and author of the memoir Cold Sweat, My Father, James Brown. Born during James Brown's peak of power, which was also a period of his chaotic personal life, Yama witnessed the darkest, most raw aspects of her legendary father. Her childhood wasn't filled with joyous concerts, but with screams and fear. In her brave memoir, Yama revealed the unhealable scars from her childhood. On a March night in 1978 at James Brown's lavish mansion in Beach Island, South Carolina, Yama, then just a 7-year-old girl, had to cower, hiding under the bed, tightly covering her ears as she witnessed her father break her mother's teeth, her mother's agonizing screams, the clatter of breaking objects, and a child's utter helplessness deeply etched themselves into Yama's mind, becoming a lifelong haunting. That fear could not be dispelled by any of her father's funk melodies, despite everything. Yama is one of the few children who found her voice and forgiveness, striving to heal her emotional wounds. But the pain of that violent childhood will forever remain a part of her, a testament to the horrific cost of a tarnished greatness. Then Deanna Brown, Thomas, the Legacy Keeper, a battle between loyalty and dark conspiracies. From the domestic violence, we move to external conspiracies. For Deanna Brown Thomas, born in 1975, daughter of James Brown and Deidre D.D. Jenkins, her father's legacy was not just a source of pride, but also a lurking curse. She tirelessly sought to preserve the image and contributions of the Godfather of Soul, yet she could not escape personal tragedies and fierce inheritance battles. One morning in July 1999, Deanna was diligently organizing a tribute concert for James Brown in Atlanta to raise money for charity, hoping to spread her father's music and generosity. However, in the middle of the meeting, her phone rang. The voice on the other end was anonymous, chillingly threatening, demanding she cease all activities related to her father's estate, or else she would pay a heavy price. That call was not just a threat. It was a shocking revelation of the cruel underside of being a legend's child, the envy and relentless schemes for gain, even from hidden figures exploiting her father's fame. Deanna, now a representative of the James Brown Family Foundation, has shouldered a massive responsibility from her famous father, appearing in tributes. But her life has also been a long journey of fighting to protect his legacy and seeking peace amidst constant turmoil. That battle continues, a deep scar of human nature and greed. 11. Michelle Cinnamon Brown, homeless under the bridge. If Deanna fought for the legacy, Michelle Cinnamon Brown represents the tragedy of being completely forgotten. Born in the late 1970s, Michelle is believed to be the result of a fleeting affair between James Brown and a musician in his backing band. Growing up without a father, Michelle faced a childhood of extreme deprivation and hardship, utterly devoid of any light from the dazzling fame of the Godfather of Soul. She lived an anonymous life, unacknowledged, unsupported, unknown. One evening in February 2008, 2 years after James Brown's death, Michelle Cinnamon Brown was found living homeless under a bridge in downtown Los Angeles. Police discovered her in poor health, frail, without money, without shelter, shivering in the cold winter night. When asked about her relationship with James Brown, she refused a DNA test, but her determined eyes held a profound pain. "I am his daughter, and I don't need a court or anyone else to confirm that. The pain of being disowned is already etched deep within me." Michelle's fate is a heartbreaking reminder that some of James Brown's children had to live in extreme poverty and utter oblivion. Despite their father's immense wealth and fame, this is a significant scar on James Brown's legacy, a tragedy of indifference. 12. Venisha Brown, when illness crushed a dream. From the depths of oblivion, we turn to the tragedy of a talent mocked by fate. Venisha Brown, daughter of James Brown and singer Yvonne Fair, was born in the early 1980s. She was a talented artist who had even performed on stage with her father. And it seemed she would inherit James Brown's talent and fortune. But fate did not smile upon Venisha. Her life was a long battle against cruel illness and unseen burdens, preventing her talent from ever truly blossoming. On the morning of December 19, 2018, at a Los Angeles hospital, Venisha Brown breathed her last due to severe pneumonia complications at just 53 years old. The pain did not end there. In her final days in the hospital bed, she faced massive medical bills, amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a lack of affection and care from her own Brown family members, who were busy embroiled in a multi-million-dollar inheritance dispute. Venisha's life is a poignant testament. Even with talent, tragedy can engulf and overwhelm, pushing a child of James Brown into a death of profound loneliness and deprivation, even as her great father was remembered by millions. 13. James Joseph Brown, II, a childhood swallowed by multi-million-dollar lawsuits. And finally, perhaps the most bitter tragedy belongs to the youngest child, James Joseph Brown II, who bore the consequences from the moment he was born. Born in 2001, he is the son of James Brown and his fourth wife, Tommy Ray Heine. His fate was tragic from birth, as his parents' marriage was later deemed invalid by the court because his mother had been married before. Little James II was taught to dance by his father at age 4, and it seemed he would have a more peaceful childhood than his older siblings. But just a few months after his 5th birthday, on December 25, 2006, James Brown suddenly passed away. Immediately, James Joseph Brown II and his mother were thrust into the epicenter of a massive inheritance lawsuit, which dragged on for over a decade and involved millions of dollars. The innocent boy had to grow up amidst the whirlwind of courtrooms, heated arguments over money, identity, and inheritance rights. For nearly 15 years, the boy frequently appeared in court, his innocent eyes watching lawyers fiercely debate his fate and the fortune of a father he barely knew. The image of a child having to go to court to fight for recognition as his biological father's son became a tremendous psychological burden, an unhealable scar in his soul. Thus, even with immense wealth, the lives of James Brown's children remained an unending chain of tragedies, where childhood was robbed by monetary schemes. So, these stories have unveiled the unending tragedies of James Brown's children. Some died tragically, others were disabled, some spent their lives yearning for acknowledgement, while others were trapped in endless financial disputes. The Godfather of Soul's fame brought the world timeless melodies, but it also sowed too many unhealable scars for his own flesh and blood. However, you know what, the real number was even higher. And the death of the King of Soul on December 25, 2006 ignited a shocking explosion, revealing a chaotic family tree where over 20 individuals unexpectedly emerged, each claiming inheritance rights and plunging into a brutal inheritance war. When James Brown took his last breath, the music world was immediately plunged into mourning, but it also made way for a storm in his own family. The Godfather of Soul's will instantly became the fuse for an unprecedented inheritance battle. It wasn't just the 13 children we know. Over 20 individuals suddenly appeared, from hidden offspring to former girlfriends, even employees, all plunged into a whirlwind of lawsuits. The South Carolina court became a new stage, where James Brown's private secrets were ruthlessly exposed. Bitter accusations, hateful glances tore apart all family ties over money. James Brown had bequeathed the majority of his immense fortune, estimated at hundreds of millions of dollars, to an educational charity for underprivileged children. However, this very noble intention sparked a fierce inheritance dispute that dragged on for a staggering 15 years, involving over 20 children and his other relationships. Finally, in 2021, a new agreement was reached. The estate was divided among some of the recognized children, the youngest son James Joseph Brown II, and the remainder still went to the charity. But that money, no matter how substantial, could it buy back the stolen childhoods of the disowned children? Could it heal Terry's disabled legs, or erase the memory of Yama's childhood beatings? Could it provide a life free from hardship for Michelle, or compensate for LaRonda and Lisa's years of yearning for recognition? Certainly not. James Brown's legacy was finally divided, but the rift in the family became an abyss, and the scars in the children's souls remain forever unhealed. What do you think about these tragic fates? Is fame and talent worth sacrificing family happiness and the peace of one's children? Share your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories that will change how you view the hidden Hollywood legends behind the dazzling spotlight.
We appreciate you watching all the way through, and if you love this glimpse into history, please hit that like button, and obviously don't forget to subscribe and this amazing notification bell so you won't miss any of our future stories about the legends who shaped generations. And one more time, go ahead and discover more great videos popping up somewhere above my head. And as I always mention, see you next time. Bye bye.